first of all, I think this concept of cyber is a very extended one that many people put a lot of more things into this basket, probably more things than necessary. So as far as the military application is concerned, the line between the so-called internet space or the physical space is very, very thin. So therefore, it is very easy to incorporate a lot of things that are cross the two borders into this concept. But I think cyber war is inevitable. Obviously, this is a sensational description. Cyber war is inevitable only when a major military confrontation occurs between two major powers. Of course, cyber attack under the circumstances is always the first choice for many reasons. For example, if the application of cyber attack really occurs, it doesn't kill a lot of people. So the human casualty, the level of human casualty is low. It is easier to control and to resort to some political means to reverse the process of warring. But in peaceful times, hostile cyber, activities are inevitable, and sometimes, we do describe it as kind of war. For example, cyber espionage, penetration, and disruption, they cause the damages that can be regarded as the kind of damages caused by a low level or low intensity warfare. So here, the fact is that we do not know how serious a cyber war could become, in terms of outcome. So we can only use our imagination. Now, we can only say, oh, it is very, very serious. Like Major General Dai Qingming once said, a major cyber war, the outcome of that is 100% worse than a nuclear exchange. So I don't know about that, but that shows, how serious, we regard, how to control, how to prevent any major, cyber hostile activities. That is part of our program, to control, to have a good governance of the cyber world. So in the five dimensional warfare in the future, I put the control of cyberspace in the core. This is a debatable. Once I was invited to talk about the space power in Asia and the Pacific, I put the control of space in the core. But whatever it is, the result is the same. The fighting is between man and the platforms. The outcome is determined by cyber capabilities. So in that case, we do not exaggerate the outcome, the consequences of any major cyber operations between major powers. Cyber, space transforms modern warfare. So that is very obvious. And we are talking about the so-called new fighting forces, 新作战力量. So cyber force and space force, for example, are depicted, are defined as a so-called 新作战力量, new fighting forces, in parallel to in comparison to the army, the navy, and the air force, but not very, very soon we will regard a cyber army as a regular service, like army, like the navy, like the air force. So we know we do have our combat cyber warfare units in the PRA. Now, we do not openly admit it, but I would say that we should not be shy, because this is a standard military transformation. Therefore, we should somehow, tell the world that we do have the capabilities, we do have the manpower to do the war fighting. So please do not bother us too much. So cyber warfare, that is something we think beyond the C4RSR in terms of, we call the G3-centric vertical distributed command chains. in comparison to the so-called G2 plus G5 oriented DCGS systems. Now, don't translate in 不要翻译这个，也就是说，如果我用我们总参的系统来讲，总参一部的这个垂直性的指挥系统，然后逐渐的会被这个我用的是美国参联会的这个 G3、G2、G5 的概念，将会日益向这个我们叫4部和3部、4部统合，加上1部的这种整体性的这个平行性的这个作战指挥系统的这个转移，那在一定程度上是我们的一个非常深刻的军事变革的一个重要内容。So the power of cyberspace, it redefines the military capabilities and the military balance. In the past, we calculate military capability in terms of how many missiles, how many aircraft carriers, how many warships one army possesses. But in the future, that is not enough. We should add the cyber capabilities to be a major component to calculate the military capabilities of a major power. So military cyber power is a defining feature of the overall military balance between the major powers. So vulnerability of a weak cyber power is deadly, is fatal. So in this case, in the major power relations, the nexus between cybersecurity and national security is very, very tight. For example, cyber security and state security and state stability are interconnected. We all know Pentagon's internet media combat units have been involved in every major, we call the color revolution in the world. Now, when we go back to my first slide, we call the 133 combat cyber units. They are always on the high alert. Arguably, it is second only to the nuclear forces. So these, we call the peacetime cyber operations. They are hostile, they are inevitable, and they will become very routinized in the major power relations. Now, we all know. So how to get rid of this one? Try to avoid. So we all know that we call internet terrorism in way of, it can arouse or trigger societal mass destruction. We all know the June 5, the Urumqi incident that started from the rumors from Shenzhen, to cause the very serious ethnic conflict between the Han and the Uyghurs. So the power of rumors is increasingly more and more heavily felt. So that adds the urgency for us to improve the so-called cyberspace governance. So I use this kind of Copenhagen school of securitization, to describe the nexus between the cybersecurity and the military and the national defense securities. So you start from identifying emerging issue with threat to the referent object. But when we come to the internet control, so you can see internet can be regarded as social media with unpredictable outcome, and it is can be a trigger of mass protest movement and a stimulant for organized opposition movement. Then it can be regime threatening. Then you have to adopt very effective countermeasures. So when we talk about the nexus of cybersecurity and military security, now the connection is also very, very obvious. First of all, cyber strike or cyber attack is not regarded atypical, 非典型 当肺炎非典型 but it will become a typical kind of warfare. 从一个传统的非传统的攻击模式会变成一个非常 standard, very normal kind of method of strike against your enemies. So cyber sanctions is also very, very serious through suspending or cutting off services in the war fighting process. Now we know Americans have suspended GPS system when the Chinese PRA launched the missiles again near Taiwan Strait in 1996, and we know those kind of temporary, suspension that caused tremendous damages to one country's military capabilities. So like Dai Qingming once said, 80% of the computer operational systems of the Chinese commercial banks, especially 4 major banks, they use the Cisco 思科的这个程序和operational systems. So if there is a major confrontation between the United States and China, cyber means can be a very convenient thing for the U.S. to intimidate the Chinese to back down from its original demand. So this that connection is very, very clear and very, very simple. Now, how to respond in military terms? So we use this kind of 3 MAD, but at strategic level in nuclear area, we still use mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction. But when we talk about the cyber strike, I use a mutually assured disruption. That is, probably you can destroy our systems 100 times, but we have the capability to disrupt or to cripple your system just once. So that is enough in strategic effect. So this kind of we call asymmetrical, cyber warfare. Once there is a major military confrontation, that is a good choice for a weak military against a stronger one. And of course, we have already mentioned this earlier. But I would like to say, if we talk about military cyber capabilities or even application of cyber capabilities in standard warfare, I would have to say that we should use it strictly in military terms. I think there are some other forces I use this word peripheral 外围的这个力量，但是外围的力量可以用于其他的目的，但是军事的这个 cyber capabilities should be used only for military purposes. So that is the first principle, the military necessity to defend basically the PRA cyber safety and security. That is in sharp contrast, or it has to differ the so-called ordinary hacker's game. And the next one, the war fighting. Now I think I have already mentioned this. So the most important thing for the building up of cyber capability is to overcome the so-called digital gap. Digital gap is the very source and the precondition for U.S. overwhelming superiority against any other major power. So when I talk about 3 MAD, especially cyber MAD, mutually assured disruption, it means to reduce the U.S. overwhelming military superiority to one that is relative. We all know that U.S. will be very hesitating if it is against another major power or another nuclear power, if it does not enjoy absolute or overwhelming military superiority. So this is very, very crucial. It's not just about the cyber security. In a way, it's about the national survival. I think my time is up, right?
Yes.
Okay, just stop here.